All right, welcome back to the Joy Revolution podcast. It's your boy Marc Cordon. If we haven't met, I hope big folks get on stage with big dreams, changing history for the better. I can't think of a better guest than this guest. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mark Twain.
Consider introductions unnecessary. To hell with this. I consider introductions unnecessary, but if it's a customer, I prefer to do the act myself, so I can rely on getting into all the facts. I was born modest, but it wore off. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to a man whose great admiration for truth is only exceeded by his high moral character and majestic presence. I refer in these vague general terms to myself, Mark Twain. I was once introduced by a lawyer who had his hands in his pockets as a humorist who was really funny. Rare creature indeed. Why, I never encountered a lawyer who had his hands in his own pockets. Why, I was struck speechless by this complimentary thunderbolt. Scarcely in my lifetime have I heard a compliment so beautifully phrased, or so well deserved. I do like compliments. We all do. Humorous, burglars, congressmen, all of us in the trade. Plan of the president is a good one. Can't get a compliment any other way. Give yourself one. I do that often. I think I'll do that right now. I can state that at this time, there are two men who are most remarkable. Kipling is one, and I am the other. Between us, we cover all knowledge. He knows all that can be known, and I know the rest. That was the beginning of an 8-minute stand-up routine that I did for a group of friends at a Law of Attraction get-together. But that really isn't me. You know, that was somebody else. That was simply a role that I played. I'm not really Mark Twain, but I think you probably knew that.
I was thinking Kentucky Fried Chicken myself.
Well,
you had me ripping off, with the ripping off of the mustache. If anyone is listening to this, that's fine, but you have to go and watch this on YouTube. Phil Bubar. You are an amazing person. I've never had an introduction quite like this one, but I want to give you, as Philip is removing his uniform, a little bit about Phil, right? Lifelong community builder, seasoned public speaker, a joyful storyteller. Mike, and I'd like to say in the past 10 days, a new buddy of mine.
Hey.
Is it too soon to say that we're buddies?
Not at all. Not at all. Friends for life.
Exactly. So, Phil, what are you doing on my show? What are you doing here?
Well, we're going to play Discovery. That's what we're going to do.
We are. And I want to take it all the way to the very beginning because you live life so vividly, right? You are super vulnerable. And I can't wait to see wherever this thing goes, right? Now, you grew up with sisters, right? And not only that, but your sisters were artists. Right? One was an art dealer, a writer. What did sort of your early years look like growing up around such a creative family?
Well, it wasn't just my sisters that had the creative bent to them. My mother could do anything. My mother sewed dresses for my sisters. She painted our rooms of the house. She was actually the go-to wallpaper hanger for herself and for our friends. When I later started working for my dad in managing apartments, and we'll get into that, I said to my dad, I really don't know how to do plumbing. I don't know how to do electrical work. But your mother, she knows how to do that. So my mother did something rather wonderful. She helped sew costumes for the costume council at the LA Art Museum. So my mom could draw, conceptualize. That's kind of where the artistic background for my sisters came in. Now, one of my early memories of why they were artists and I wasn't was we had a babysitter named Claire. And Claire would come over and she would put a bowl of fruit, some flowers on the table. And she would get out the papers and the markers and she would say, draw that. And my sisters would have something amazing.
Yeah.
And she would look at mine. She says, So, Phil, how was your experience? I said, I didn't feel for it that much. And she says, great. So change seats and draw from a different perspective. I didn't like it the first time.
Feeling that that might be a metaphor for your whole life, right? Change
It was.
seats and do things from a different perspective.
Well, my sisters would then give their artwork to my mom, who would put it up on the wall in the living room. And my parents' friends would come over, and they would say, my mom would say, Beverly did this, Janet did this, Lorraine did this. And then they would say, well, what did Phil do? Because I didn't have any artwork up on the wall. My mom would say, well, Phil has his own talents. So I went up to my mom and said, what are they?
That is not real. You did not say. How did she answer?
That's real. That's real. She says, honey, you've got talents. So
you've got talents.
Yeah, whatever. So I had a door on my bedroom that had a recess in it. So I put corkboard in that recess. And then, since I grew up in the 60s, I collected and made my own bumper stickers. And the bumper stickers were, against the Vietnam War. And so nice. I had a bunch of those, and they would read my bumper stickers. Well, my sisters didn't do that. I did.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I would consider yourself, in and of itself, right? Creating bumper stickers, being a revolutionary of sorts, right? You told you gave your first public speech in 6th or 7th grade, correct? Who does that? Who gives a speech at well, I guess in the 6th grade. Yeah, you're giving speeches okay. There. I thought 6 years old.
No, not 6 years. Well, no, but years ago, there was a TV show called Art Linkletter's House Party. And okay. Art Linkletter was this great guy that interviewed kids. And the other version of the show was Kids Say the Darndest Things. Well, I
remember that one.
Okay. So I was on that show. I was selected from my class to be on that show. And oh boy, did I say the darndest things. And it was...
What did you say?
But in the 6th grade, we had this amazing teacher that said, for graduation, we're going to do a play. And so my friend Alan Warhoftig and I wrote a 3-act play. I wrote 1 act, he wrote 1 act, and together we wrote 1 act. And he and I competed to be valedictorian of our elementary school class. And whoever won from what the kids voted on got to give the speech. The other one got to direct the play. Well, he directed the play beautifully.
Nice. That's a lot of pressure, man. In 6th grade?
Nah.
Giving a speech. So you've never felt a stage fright or anything like that?
Well, yeah.
You're comfortable.
I did and I have, but here's the secret about public speaking that I like to share with everybody, is that when you get up, you're the only one that knows what you're talking about. You're the only one that knows when you're going to sit down. People are looking at you, but you're looking at them. So you can tell if they're paying attention, they're not paying attention. You can walk over to them and talk to them. Talking to an audience of 10 people or 100 people is the same as talking to one person. That's all you're talking to, one person at a time.
My gosh. And I'm sure you've worked with folks who've had nothing but crippling stage fright.
Number one fear is public speaking.
Over death.
Yeah.
Now, were your sisters good at public speaking?
Yeah, they're pretty good. No.
I'm trying to find some contrast here.
There is, but the thing is that for them, that wasn't their avocation. That wasn't their vocation. That wasn't the thrust of their lives. That they were, and still are, very visual. I didn't have that opportunity. I had 3 eye surgeries, and I was cross-eyed. I had surgery when I was 9, 20, and 30. Well, the third surgery when I was 30 corrected it, but I wore these heavy-duty glasses that had this weird prism on it so that I would be able to, see straight. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a lawyer.
How so?
I felt I had all the verbal skills, but I couldn't read. I mean, I could read, but it was tiring. And then I thought, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a rabbi. And
Okay.
well, that's even more reading. And I said, I could give a sermon, but I don't know the language. The print in the Torah is very small. And, it was hard for me to read it. So I decided I'm going to give that up.
Okay.
So,
And that's something that you've had your whole life, right? Fatigue when it comes to reading for prolonged periods of time, right? Still. Got it. Got it. Were you picked on a lot? Or did you ever feel, how about this? Have you ever felt like you're different from other folks? And that doesn't have to be positive or negative.
yeah, growing up, I was the smallest in my elementary school class. And I didn't start growing until I was about 15.
Okay.
And,
So you were like
then,
itty bitty in the front of the line.
yeah. And
Did
I
that
didn't,
mess with you? Did that mess with you, being the shortest kid in the class?
yeah, it
Kind of.
did. That I wasn't athletic, so I talked a lot.
Okay. Because I gotta say, being the shortest kid in the class from like first grade to like eighth grade, I'd say no, it didn't have an impact on me, but it did. Little short kid syndrome, And when I hear my son talking about it, I'm like, yes, this is exactly how I felt in terms of being the front of the line. They did like organize you, right? Like tallest, the shortest, in the very front.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Phil, get to the front of the line. You're the dinky one. Yeah.
Yeah. What are other ways that you found yourself being different? Because I know that's something that you talk about. And I don't know if you remember, but when we first met, which was over Zoom at an outdoor pool party,
Yeah.
you went around talking about like being a little bit different, having a little flavor.
Well, I don't find being ordinary acceptable. I think that
Tell me more.
I think that everybody has the opportunity to lead an extraordinary life. That people restrict themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to set that aside. But the difference between me and other people is that I talk a lot. Sometimes, I keep talking and figuring that maybe I'll have something to say that's worthwhile, but I don't consider myself special, but I consider myself extraordinary because I have capabilities and I let people know it. To live a life fully self-expressed takes something. But what a joy it is.
What is one moment that you can remember actualizing that? Because, Phil, I get to work with people on a regular basis, right, when it comes to coaching. A lot of people come in not having that sense of empowerment. Was there something that happened to you or something that you heard or did that really lit that switch up with you when it comes to living an extraordinary life?
Yeah. I got a chance to be a camp counselor. Best job I ever had.
Okay.
And at the end of the summer of doing drama and dance and all kinds of, activities for the kids, the camp director said, "What is your greatest asset?" And I said, "I'm willing to make a fool out of myself for the benefit of the campers." And he said to me, "You never know when you're going to touch a person's life." And that stuck with me because I always felt that conversations with people are the best. Like savory, it's sweet, it's delicious, and you don't want to miss it.
It makes so much sense, In meeting with you, like we basically talked for like 15 minutes at this house party, and then we're on cell phones talking to each other. I completely feel that. And we didn't have time to talk about why this podcast was created, but I had felt like I had spent so many years of my life and I'd let them go by and I wasn't engaging people in conversations. I would avoid conversations. I was shy. And also, it's not something that I wanted to continue. I think one of the coolest things in life is to be with someone and break bread with them, have conversations with them, get to know each other, feeling impacted and changed by another person. It's obvious that you feel that as well. And I'm guessing that a lot of people around you consider you a incredible conversationalist.
I'm humbled by that. I don't know if that is necessarily true, but I do have an idea of how conversations come about. And how impactful they are.
Do you go out of your way? Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, you have 30 seconds with which to make an impact on somebody. You're reading all their nonverbals. If a person is smiling, or do you need to create that smile with them that previously wasn't there? As soon as you speak, you're creating history. That a relationship is based on a continuation of that history of that conversation. And to be able to put that person into a place that you can create anew and not base them on what has happened in the past takes something, but it's really worth doing. And that's
Do you start conversations everywhere, every day with people? Person next to you in a line getting coffee? Or is it really more so like, oh, this person would probably be open to a conversation. I see that the way that they're standing and the way that they're looking around, the way that they're smiling. Is that something that um you kind of are magnetized to, something that you're drawn in? Or do you just on a regular basis start conversations with people?
I on a regular basis start conversations with people
Okay.
because, that may be the best conversation I ever have in my whole life. You have your golden moments.
So when you're where you are right now, right? What was the most incredible conversation that you had with a person you've never met before? And I'm sure there's hundreds, thousands probably for you. But what's that one conversation that you've had where you're like, this person has just changed the way that I look at my life. They changed my perspective.
I could go on for hours on stuff like that, on many people.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, there was a course that I took that I know that you have taken as well, Landmark. Landmark is transformational learning. Was front and center in front of 150 people, and I said, I'm conflicted. And the course leader says, what are you conflicted about? I said, well, I feel this sense of responsibility. I had a job that was stressful. I had a family, and I felt that I had to be responsible and I couldn't mess up. So she kept digging and digging and digging, and I said, she said, there's something there and you're not enunciating it. I said, Dad, I don't have any problem talking at all. I kept talking and talking. I said, well, what is it? She says, it's for you to discover. I said, to hell with this. I'm going to go sit down. No, you're not. I go, what do you mean I'm not? I'm done. No, you're not. So I was talking, and all of a sudden I go, oh my God. And I am crying, tears streaming down my face. I'm literally shaking. And she said, what did you discover? I said, I'm afraid to be vulnerable.
Yo, Phil.
Wow. I was just, how the light bulbs light up?
Completely.
I lit up cities. I mean, that was such an epiphany to me, thinking that I put myself into this place that I couldn't mess up. And so I talked to my son about it. And I said, I have spent a lot of time thinking about the legacy that I am leaving behind for you. I said, that there was a whole lot of time that I would be up at night thinking about the fact that I'm not computer literate, I'm not a musician, I'm not a sports guy, and I'm thinking, I'm not. I said, what did I actually pass on to my kids? And then it dawned on me, self-esteem, leadership. My kids have it in spades. And I said, Josh, I was afraid to mess up. He said, oh, Dad, you messed up all the time. Don't worry about it. To be able to have that kind of a conversation when you expose your humanity, and it's not a generational thing. The generations kind of like go by the wayside, and you're just in communication to each other. That, to me.
Did you have that kind of relationship with your dad? Was your dad vulnerable with you?
No.
Is that something you would have wished that you had with him?
My dad was a machine. He got up in the morning and he went to work. Before he came home, he would go to his mother's and make sure she was okay, because my grandfather passed when I was in elementary school, and my grandmother outlived him by 23 years. And then he'd come home, he'd do what most men did at that time. You sit around the dining room table and you have that conversation. Okay, daughter number one, daughter number two, daughter number three, how was your day? And so my
There was an
sisters,
agenda there.
yeah,
The board
like
meeting.
my sisters thought it was the Inquisition. But my dad was asking a simple question. He wanted to know. But my dad was described by my sisters as outward gruff and inward mush. I mean, he had a tender side to him, but he didn't expose it that often. And so my eldest sister, Beverly, and I had a conversation recently about how many times did Dad hug you? And I said, well, probably less than the number I can count on one hand. I mean,
Wow.
it was not a whole lot. And with my son, on the other hand, I hug him all the time.
He's
And I said,
huggable.
well, yeah. So I said a couple years ago, I said, Josh, are you too old for me to snuggle with you? And then he, I'm laying down and he puts his head on my chest. He says, Dad, I'll let you know. The time hasn't come yet.
I love all of that. I love all of that. Is it the same with your other children? Do you have that kind of relationship?
My daughter and I talk every day, and we get into mischief. And yeah, I mean, my kids are like the air that I breathe. I can't get enough of them.
I got it. I need to know a little bit of this mischief. I just have to go there, dude.
Okay. Well, my daughter loves her coffee. So we go to coffee places, or when she was young, we used to literally bounce around and we were kangaroos. Or I would be walking along and I get stuck in a flamingo pose. And she's like, Dad, what are you doing? And you have a young child, and your young child probably asks you questions. Some of those questions you know the answer, and some of the questions you don't. So what do you do when you don't know the answer? You make it up. I got the questions from both Alana and Josh. Dad, why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green?
Nice.
And I'd give them an answer. And they said, where did you get the answer? I said, well, it's simple. I got it from the Book of Dad. The Book of Dad? It's on page 342, second paragraph down.
You actually said it? The Book of Dad?
The Book of...
Okay, that's going to be a full-on book, for real.
And my kids want me to do that. And, you and I both live by if you put it out there in the world, you have to create it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be done.
Yep. When you say X, X happens.
Yeah. Well, that's a project that's going to be done.
Completely. The podcast of Dad, I see the whole thing. And then you with a bucket of chicken dressed as Mark Twain.
I would love to do a podcast on the fine art of dadding.
You got it. I absolutely love it. From what I've gotten from you, you are a person who wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
And I don't see you as a person with a lot of malice or resentment. And people may not know that you're a social justice advocate, right? Having worked on our presidential campaign, Dr. King, the Vietnam War, you really have been a person who's been into civic action, right? And so what does that mean to you in sort of this day and age where, look, we're making movements, we're making revolutions. What does that look for you now versus where you were then?
Well, at that time, people got up and they protested.
Yeah.
I cut my political teeth when I was 14, when I was working as a kid at Robert F. Kennedy, and he would have made a great president. And unfortunately, his life got taken early. I read lots of books about civil rights, and there was one African-American kid in my class, and we had a lot of discussions about what it was like to be different. There were not a whole lot of Jewish kids in my elementary school class either, and I was always kind of one that stuck up for myself. I remember that we were supposed to be doing a Christmas program, and when I was in the 6th grade, I said, I'm not participating. And the teacher says, what do you mean you're not participating? Everybody's participating. I said, I'm tired of singing all of this Christmas song. And there's one Hanukkah song, Rock of Ages, and that's it. And I said, I'm not showing up. She says, well, what would help if to make you show up? I said, don't call it a Christmas show. She says, well, what would you call it? I said, the winter program.
Nice.
And it got
How did that
changed.
go?
It
It got changed.
Yeah.
The power
So,
of a voice.
yes. Okay, I'll give you one. I'll give you one other that I was a pain in the ass, and I have always been a pain in the ass and nonconformist, and didn't want to do what I was told. I was in Rotary for a number of years, and I became Rotary president in '91 and again in '95. And there was one president that came after me, and he decided that he was going to do a benediction. Well, every meeting had an invocation, but none of the meetings had a benediction. And the reason that he wanted to put in a benediction is because my dad gave the invocations, and he did that in such a way as it was non-denominational. And the guy that was president thought that Elmer Holmes, our pastor, would get offended. Well, Elmer didn't get offended. He thought it was okay. But then Elmer got called upon to do a benediction every week. So Elmer does his benediction, and in the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Okay. So Elmer was gone one day. So the president of the club says, Elmer's not here. And can anybody do the benediction? And they go, okay, Phil. Yevarechach Adonai v'yishmerecha.
I get it.
Okay. Gave the whole thing in Hebrew. He said, what was that? I said, well, Elmer does it his way. I do it mine. That was the end of the benedictions.
Wow. You know what's interesting is, we started off by talking about if you ever felt different and in which ways. I'm getting, I've been different and I fight for that difference. I love the diversity in thoughts and all those sorts of things. And it sounds like you don't have a problem with that kind of diversity, except when one person has the voice and it's always going to be about Jesus, or it's always going to be about this way, or it's always going to be about one thing.
No, not anymore, but
Okay.
But the thing is that I don't like when things are always the same way, and that there would be somebody that would potentially be affected by this insensitivity wherever it is. So I've always been a nonconformist. I've always been the guy that tried to shake up the way things were done. In high school, you go to gym class, you have to wear a certain uniform. There was a track coach that was not happy with me because every day I had a kind of slightly different outfit. I would wear 2 different kinds of shoes, 2 different kinds of socks, not the right shirt. I would hide behind the bleachers, not do all the laps, and he said, we're going to do the mile run. And he says, you're probably not going to be able to do this. I said, just watch me.
He
And
gotcha.
I smoked them, I mean, I was faster than I even was real. But
You impressed yourself.
Well, it was part of my lifelong problem, which is don't tell me what to do.
Yeah. Is that still something that shows up for you?
In
Yeah, you got to
spades
see this
sometimes.
guy's face right here. Yeah.
Now, I am at times even painfully aware of it, but I set it aside because everybody has restrictions. Everybody has things that conflict them. Everybody
what?
has considerations. I get bored easy. And if I am hearing a lecture, I'm going, okay, I was a speech major. I know how to deliver a better speech. They're boring. I'll tell
But
you.
not this podcast, Bubar.
No, well,
Not
no.
this podcast.
Because of you. Okay, I'm going to tell you an embarrassing story of something
Let
that
it
I
rip.
shouldn't have done. I'm in a public speaking class at LA City College, and the teacher is supposed to have us do speeches. 10 weeks into the class, we haven't given one speech. nor did we have any critiques, none of that. So the teacher gets up and he starts reading out a book on how to get attention. Did not sit well with me. I stood up and I said, "You're boring." And he said, "Excuse me?" He said, "What did you say?" I said, "You're boring." He said, "Well, why did you say that?" I said, "Because you're never going to get attention out of reading out of a book."
Yo, Phil.
I said, "I want to hear you and what you have to say." And
And
I said, "I got people's attention better than you did." And he said, "Do you think you're a leader?" And I said, "Absolutely." He says, "Tomorrow I want you to come to class and I want you to give a speech on leadership." I said, "Be glad to." So the following day, he called upon me. I stood up, went to the front of the room, turned around. I said, "Would everybody please stand up?" Everybody did. I said, "Thank you. You can now sit down." And he said, "What's that?" Leadership.
leadership, baby.
So I actually taught the class outside the classroom for about 3 weeks. Kids were doing speeches, critiquing each other, and the teacher comes by and says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Teaching the class." "You want the class? I'm going to tell you how to do your class." "I don't want to do this. It's your responsibility." I was a pain in the ass. Now, it has softened over the years.
But you still are. Is that what you're saying?
But, well, no, the thing is that, if you have something that triggers you, it's always there. It doesn't go away. It's just, how do you deal with it?
Mm-hmm. So you still get triggered, is what I'm hearing. But it's not necessarily I don't want to call it a reaction, but the way that you express that is not as in your face.
Yeah, because something changed and shifted in my perspective. People matter.
Yo.
That I am verbally very strong. When I was a camp counselor, I certainly got mad at my kids for doing like crazy
Whatever they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say to them, you really don't want to get me irritated, because I can throw an insult faster and with greater velocity and hit the mark better than anybody you will have ever seen. And they said, "Show me."
There you go. There's that thing again where it's like, show me who rises to the occasion.
So I did rise to the occasion, and then all of a sudden I would have to say is, the sky's going to light up tonight. I don't want to throw any more lightning bolts. Guys, knock it off. So it got softened, and years went by. I'm at a meeting of a group that I absolutely adore called the Law of Attraction, based on teachings of
Universal law.
Okay. So we're at this meeting, and my wife, Brenda, says, there have been times in my life that I felt disregarded. I never heard this word before, and I never heard that from her. So I stood up and I said, I got to deal with this. I said, if she has felt disregarded, and a lot of the communication is between the two of us, I have done this, and I don't want to do this anymore. So I not only want to apologize verbally, but I want to show her for the rest of my life that should not occur. Does it? Sure. But, that's me being human. But also me being more vulnerable and living a life that is the life that I choose to live. I'm aware of it, and I want to live it differently.
So what this week have you done to honor her, to be vulnerable?
Well, this week hasn't been my best week to show her all of that attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because this week there's a lot that's been focused on me and my agenda.
Yeah.
But we are going to New York in the beginning of September, because she has never been to New York. And
Amazing.
She made the request.
Amazing.
Okay.
Take a picture at Gray's Papaya for me.
Okay.
They're all over the place. Gray's Papaya hot dog. Or if you don't eat hot dog, go and grab a slice of pizza or something like that. Take a picture for me, okay?
Absolutely.
You're talking a lot about vulnerability, Phil, right? So there's that sort of chest wide open piece that I'm hearing from you, right? Are you the type of person who will feel so moved that you'll break into tears?
Yes.
When was the last time that happened?
Lots of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Accomplishments of my kids. I'll tell you, the greatest day of my life was my wedding, but it was also the wedding of my daughter. I was a mess.
Were you?
just tears.
Did you know that was going to happen, or was it just spontaneous where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going there right now?
Spontaneous, and then I had a number of opportunities that day that were really great. That was one of them. Brenda and I walked her down together. Then I had the opportunity to do the dad speech.
The dad speech. Tell me about it, Phil.
Well, that was just wonderful. And because I told her how proud I was of her and how the choice that she made in a life partner was terrific. I adore my son-in-law. I mean, he and my daughter are just a perfect match. They really do support each other so well. And then me being the speech guy, I had to throw in those lines.
Did you show up as Colonel Sanders?
No, I didn't. But I'll tell you what I did do is that they wanted me in a navy blue suit with a blue shirt. Okay. I had a really nice blue shirt that was in my closet, but unfortunately it shrank. You know how, that there are things in your closet that shrink because, adrenaline. Okay. So I said, I've got to lose the weight in order to get into this shirt. So I walked miles every day. I mean, like 5 to 10 miles every day so that I can lose the 20 pounds to fit into the shirt.
Okay.
But my daughter kept our last name and hyphenated it with her husband's name. So she's
super
now
cool.
Lana Bubar Choate. So my best line is that I hope your lives are forever hyphenated and your lives are forever caffeinated.
Always a zinger in there, Phil. Always a zinger, man.
But another best part, the dad and daughter danced.
You had to have been a mess, dude.
Yeah, I cried at that one because the song that we chose was a song that I sang to her every night for years.
My gosh. Can we break into song right now? Can we take a request from Phil to sing My Girl? You're like, what did I do getting on this show?
Actually, I know this will sound really strange, but there are songs that I would sing, but that one is just not coming.
Well, feel free.
Why, but I'm just like lost the words.
Well, you and I are in a program that talks about not forcing any issues. So we open the possibility.
Okay. I'll give you the song that I sang the last time that I sang in front of a ton of people that weren't expecting it. Let's see. How does this one go? For once in a lifetime, a man has a moment. A man has a moment that fate takes his hand. And this is my moment. My once in a lifetime came from Stop the World, I Want to Get Off.
Oh, I thought it was Motley Crue, but I get the two always mixed up. Fantastic, Phil.
This is how I live my life. This is my moment. That there are people that insist on bringing their past into their present. Doesn't serve them well.
It doesn't, does it? Yeah.
Clogs the lane.
Hey, are you picking up what I'm throwing down here? Are you digging the Joy Revolution podcast? If so, I invite you to subscribe on this platform. Now, if you want more, I have an online community called The Underground. It's free to sign up. In there, you'll find mini courses inspired by podcasts like this one. You get to connect with other community members. I'm in there. The link's in the description. Let's get back to the episode. I think this is a good time to ask this question when it comes to you breaking out into songs and talking about moments, right? You say this, accept the challenges life throws at you. The opportunities when one door closes can astound you. And in many ways, I see that as sort of this adapting to those moments. Does that make any sense, Phil?
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Okay. Obviously, I love my kids more than anything else in the world. I mean, I used to tell them that I love them every second of every minute of every hour of every day. And I do, to infinity and beyond. So my son, a number of years ago, invites me to a program. And he says, Dad, I've got this thing that I've been involved in, and I want you to come to my graduation. I go, Okay, fine. Where is it? In Irvine. Irvine and Los Angeles are not exactly close, but you can get there. Okay? So I'm on the freeway for over an hour and a half, and I get there, and I'm, in this room with like 150 people. And there's this guy that's standing up in front, and he's talking about this thing called Landmark. And so at the end of this, my son Josh comes up to me and says, Dad, what do you think about it? And he's all excited. And I said, not much. And
Wow.
he's totally deflated. And he says, well, why not? I said, well, this program is probably amazing. And, but the guy really didn't have everybody, and the place was freezing. And so people are really not being taken care of. And if they're not being taken care of, why not? So Josh goes to the table to sign up my daughter to the program, and he pays for it. And I said, now you have my attention. So my daughter completes the program, and I go to her graduation. And there's this forum leader, Larry Pearson, who's a force. And he was talking to people, and I was just spellbound by him. And my son said, what do you think of the program? I said, now I get it. So he said, Dad, do you want to do it? I said, I've already done it. I did EST, which was a precursor to Landmark.
Yeah.
So I said to the guys in the room, sign me up for the advanced course. And they said, excuse me? They were like, now what do I do? Nobody ever asked that before.
Advanced course being one of the courses that after you take the forum course.
The beginning course called the forum. Yes.
Yeah.
So they say, somebody said, well, you got to ask Larry, So Larry Pearson comes over to me and he says, that sounds good to me. Sign him up. So I get a call from Landmark, and Landmark said, I understand you did EST. We suggest that you do Landmark, and we'll give it to you at a reviewer price. I said, great.
Okay.
And the reason I signed up for this is because I wanted the same tools that my son and daughter had. If they were learning a new language, I wanted to know the language. I wanted to be able to talk to them on the same level. So I have gone through lots of courses, and we'll get into that in a minute. But the thing for me is that I want to break down the barriers, if there are any, between my kids and myself. Now, certainly there's a generational thing, that's going on. And I can't really help that. I'm a dinosaur, and they know it. So they help me in my computer issues, and we've had the discussion where I would meet my son's friends, and I would say, okay, you ladies, we're going to go do this. He said, Dad, you can't say that. I said, what do you mean I can't say that? He says, because you think that this person is she, but she's not she is they. Okay, now what do? I've got my foot in my mouth. So now I ask, what are your pronouns? This is part of learning, that each generation is supposed to push the envelope. That, for me, it was the Vietnam War. It was, the area of free love.
Yeah.
It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, of which I participated in a lot of that.
Hit it, Phil.
But my kids, this is a time of real revolution, of people are just human. Good story for you. At the second course of Landmark, called the advanced course, there is a distinction they call being there, and where you're shoulder to shoulder and toe to toe with 150 people in the room, and you are told you're going to have a conversation with the person in front of you, and I want you to have that conversation for 5 minutes and not say a word. I'm standing in front of a 300-pound African-American woman, and I said, I have nothing in common with this person. She's looking at me. I'm looking at her. We're studying each other's faces. We're studying each other's body movements. All of this great nonverbal communication. At the end of that 5 minutes, I was totally transformed. I no longer was a 60-something white Jewish guy. At that point, I became human. 2020 census comes out, and you're supposed to put white, black, brown, yellow, whatever you are. And I put other, human. That's where I live. That everybody matters.
Mm.
Everybody. And so, yeah, I've made the mistakes in terms of what people's pronouns are, but okay, I'm learning. I'm going to backtrack a little. My dad and I had two conversations in our lives. One was about when do you take out the trash, and the other one was when you're going to get a haircut. My son, hair below his shoulders, earrings, oh, it's okay with me. His full self-expression. It's the way he wants to show up. And it's the person, not how they look. It's the person and how they respond. What is their passion? What's their mission? What's their drives them? What gets them going? And I want to hear that conversation. I want to generate it.
Got it. Phil, define the way that define joy for me and how you live joy.
I sing, I dance. I have conversations. I want to live life out there. I've never been an introvert. I've always been, shooting my mouth off. And sometimes I actually have something worthwhile to say, not often, but sometimes. I consider life to be savory and sweet. It's delicious. I don't want to miss it. I've already lived 3/4 of my life. I'm, not quite there at the last quarter. I'm the youngest I'll ever be.
I love it. I want to ask you this. So some people will it's the name of my company is Joy Revolution, right? And I'm about to ask you what's yours. Some people will call this the ikigai, right? That's the Japanese term for your reason for living. We kind of played this game when you and I were at that long distance party. Like if a mic descends from your roof and lands in front of you and every person can hear it, what would you say? There's other organizations that call this a game in the world. But for me, a joy revolution is something that, and you talked about it, like it feels like your heart is running over with just joy, right? And then the second part is a joy revolution can be one in which we can move and evolve things further using joy, not just being pissed off, not just tearing something down. And even if we tear something down, it's building it up with joy. So, Phil, game in the world, ikigai, what is your joy revolution?
Good that you brought this up, because here's how I operate, is that I have lots of different passions, but I live my life by choices and possibilities. And I'm the possibility of empowering others one conversation at a time. It's what I do. I have a game in the world that I am creating. And it came out of this idea that my son had to get me involved in this group of very creative people that are involved in TEAM. TEAM is a management leadership training program that enables people to communicate at the highest elite level. This is big time stuff. Spent an enormous number of years going to school as a communications major. Didn't get it there. Am I getting it now? Yeah. And it's kicking my butt. But
welcome to day one.
Yeah, but I'm loving it. So in this team, part of our requirements is to create a project. But it's not a project, because a project has dread attached to it. This is a game, and a game has joy attached to it. Otherwise, why play?
Exactly.
So here's my game. I want a day in which people are fully self-expressed, that they uncover things about themselves that were previously hidden or that haven't come out in ages. So there is a Hebrew word called hagigah. Hagigah means celebration. And in that celebration, you display creativity. So this morning, day one, to start my game that I can already see as happening. So today I called to get a venue, because I got to have it somewhere.
It's on, Phil.
So I have a friend who I went to camp with who has a place out in the San Fernando Valley that she has this company called Art Trek that does workshops for schools, organizations, where you do art projects. And that art project will be team building, motivational. So I want to do the project there. Haven't had the conversation yet, but I've contacted her.
You just call your shot and the shot happens, right? I'm so excited for you. I'm going to put your contact information for anyone who wants to participate or attend Hagiga. Hagiga, is that correct? No. Hagiga.
Well,
right?
that may not necessarily be the name of it, but it works for me right now.
And whatever it's.
And so what's going to happen at this event is art projects, dance, songwriting, improv, meditation, I haven't brainstormed enough, but I already talked to, this morning, I've talked to 6 people, and they said, I'm on board.
Incredible. I love it. Yeah.
So
we're going to have all the information down below in the show notes. Phil, you got to come back, brother. And you got to come back with as Mark Twain as well. We want to see what Mark has been up to. Thank you. And I'll talk to you soon, my friend. Now, we got our guest. And with this said, for your sake, for my sake, for our sake, for goodness sake, start your revolution. Start it in love, in light, in shadows, and in joy, baby. All right, this wraps up another episode of the Joy Revolution podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And since you made it this far, go ahead and hit subscribe. Now, if you want to hear more podcasts, or if you're ready to engage with a community who will support and challenge you, if you're ready to start your own Joy Revolution, head on over to my online community, The Underground. The link is in the description. It's free to sign up. I've got a bunch of resources in there, including my own Joy Revolution course. So until next time, I'm Marc Cordon Creative. Dig deep, and I'll see you in the underground.